Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Condo Coaches. It's our very first show, so we're going to have a lot to talk about here on our very first episode. To give you a quick introduction on what the Condo Coaches is about, this is a brand new radio show. We are a team of educational and informational experts when it comes to board members and residents who live under a condominium or homeowners association. And our mission here today is to help you and these associations run effectively, efficiently, and on budget. Let's lay down some ground rules. Of course, you can reach us at thecondocoaches.com. That's thecondocoaches.com. You can also call us with any of your questions, or if you want to schedule an appointment, to 813-331-5415, 813-331-5415, and you can email us, help@thecondocoaches.com. That's help@thecondocoaches.com. So let's start today's show by doing introductions. I'll be the host of the show. My name's Johnny Torres, and the stars of our show here for our inaugural episode, we have Dean Akers, who's our condo head coach. Hey, Dean.
Hey, Jonathan. How are you today?
Doing excellent. Thanks for being on the show. And one of our condo coaches, Chad Sweeting.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here.
Hey, Chad. Thanks for coming. And so let's jump right into it. You know, this is our first show. We want to give people an idea of what to expect, what this show's about, how it's going to help them in creating a better overall environment for the condo or the home they live in. Dean, what is the Condo Coaches about?
Well, Jonathan, we decided to have a program with your help and everybody else's help where we could reach out to all the condominium owners across the state of Florida at this time. There's about 9 million people living in the condos and homeowners associations in the state of Florida, which is 45% of the population.
Wow.
So we felt a real need here.
Absolutely. And, you know, part of the Condo Coaches, as we've talked before, you know, as we were getting ready to do this show, it's not limited to just your team members, right? There are people out there in the community who want to be condo coaches. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, part of the foundation is we reach out to experts that the condominiums and the homeowners associations need information from. And we have them come on our show, and they're going to be here to answer questions about specific items, not about their companies, not about what they do, but about helping condominiums and homeowners associations.
And of course, there's so much, right, to running a community, running a condominium. Give us an idea of some of the experts that people can expect on this show and all the episodes going forward.
Well, some of the experts, we're going to have reserve study experts, accounting experts, law experts, and then probably communication experts, people that can really help them build more value out of their associations.
Yeah, and then we also talked about possibly having even some local elected officials on the show because, of course, the things that they legislate affect condominium and homeowner associations and even property management companies, which is something that just about all of them deal with as well. Is that right?
That's correct. And I've talked to a number of the politicians across the state about this, and with a voting block of almost 9 million voters, they definitely want to be a coach.
Yeah, well, and they also look for any and every way that they can serve their constituency.
Absolutely.
And so it's only going to benefit them to be on this show with us, and we're going to be fortunate to have them on our show along with all the other experts that we have in our network of condo coaches. And Chad, just give us a quick idea of your expertise here in being one of our condo coaches. What's the area that you focus on?
Sure. Past 3 or 4 years, I've focused primarily on condominium and homeowner association law, and I would say I've focused mostly on collection of delinquent assessments.
Okay, so it's obviously not a topic that a lot of people enjoy talking about,
Nope.
But it's a necessary evil. I mean, it's something that it happens frequently for any variety of reasons. And of course, depending on your governing documents, I'm sure that we're going to get into exactly how to handle those situations. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. And so again, if you want to participate on our show, you can do so round the clock, 24/7, thecondocoaches.com, thecondocoaches.com. You can call us. You can possibly even talk to Dean, 813-331-5415. Don't worry, it's not his cell phone, 813-331-5415. And again, there you can talk to one of our condo coaches if you just have maybe a simple question you need answered, or maybe you want to have us come out and talk to your board of directors, maybe do an an assessment, which is something that we're going to talk about in a little bit. And of course, just about everybody has an email address nowadays as well. And you can reach us via email at help@thecondocoaches.com. That's help@thecondocoaches.com.
Maybe what's his cell phone?
It's okay.
Someone call right now.
It's our first episode. It was bound to happen.
Well, I mean, I turned off the sound, but that's my alarm.
Oh no. So I mean, that point, you just got to shut it off completely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's okay. So let's get into, again, the people that we're trying to reach, the people that we're trying to help here, the board of directors for a condominium or homeowners association. Give us an overview. What is the role of the board?
Well, the board is I call it this. It's the commissioners of a municipality.
Okay.
They basically are elected by the constituency, which is the homeowners, and they're the governing entity for the association, just like your county commissioners or city commissioners or legislators would be in any other kind of government. But it's more like the city type model.
And so, in terms of the decisions they make, really, how how is its board typically comprised? Because of course, there's lots of angles, there's lots of variety in terms of the things that they need to manage. What is the typical composition of a board?
Well, a board needs to have a minimum of 3 members, which is the secretary, treasurer, and president. You can have pretty much unlimited membership above that. We've seen boards as much as 20 members, which is, that's try to herd cats.
Yeah.
I spoke to a board about 6-8 months ago that had 20 members on it. And, it was a lot of decision making that was kind of hard to do. But
Sure.
Most boards have 3 to 7 members. And again, they're like a local government.
So when someone gets on one of these boards, I mean, it could be anybody, right? Because it's just made up of the residents of that particular condominium or home or community.
Right. You need to be a resident. You need to be current with all your dues, payments, and all your assessments. But it can be anybody. There's not a qualification requirement, which is a good thing and a bad thing.
Sure, because, I'm sure one of the things that we're going to see time and time again are people who maybe volunteer for certain roles that they're not necessarily qualified for, and that's okay. But that's why we're here, because we want to make sure that those folks know not only the role that they play, but also that they develop the experience that they need to help their associations run effectively, right?
Yeah, Jonathan, like I told you, I've been in the business about 10 months, and I've had previous companies. And when I went around and met with boards, and I've met with a lot of boards across the state, I found this huge diversity of information. So that's one of the precedents, or one of the reasons we started Condo Coaches, was to be able to take our teachings to every level.
Okay. Well, and just before we get into exactly what the Condo Coaches can do for an association, again, thecondocoaches.com is our website. You can schedule an appointment, or if you have a question that you'd like to ask, 813-331-5415. That's our number. And help@thecondocoaches.com. We're talking to Dean Akers, our condo head coach, and Chad Sweeting, our condo coach. When somebody calls and they say, you know what, my association's a bit of a mess right now. We've got more fires than we can put out. What is it that the Condo Coaches comes in and does?
Well, first we'll come in independent at no cost and do a 4-page assessment, which will ask them questions on communication. It'll ask questions about their property management company, what they feel. It'll ask questions on their finances, various things that helps give us a framework, much like a doctor would do before you go in and have surgery or something. Sure. And out of that, we'll give them outlines that they can use with whatever vendor they want.
Okay, and then so obviously that gives them a plan of action, right? That gives them a roadmap of where they need to go to kind of get back on the same page. And so to kind of open up the conversation and kind of get started on some of the topics we're going to cover, what is the number one issue you see across the board consistently when dealing with these associations?
The number one issue I see is communications. And I think that bodes both ways, with board members to their constituency and to the members of the community back to the board members.
Okay. And so you were telling me, because again, we have so many ways to communicate nowadays, right? I'm connected. I mean, my phone's always, no more than a foot or two away from me. There's phone, email, social media, texting. I'm sure there's stuff out there that we don't even know about. And of course, standard mail. And so, how do you feel are some of the best ways to approach starting to tackle that communication hurdle in a community?
Well, when we come in and do an assessment, one of the things we're going to do is ask how you do it now. Mm-hmm. We will set up a survey. We do a free survey to all your residents of the best ways they want to be communicated. And then they'll send back that data, and that's how we're going to know the best plans of action for your association.
Okay. Now, you've done these plenty of times, and so Is there one that you feel is kind of the one that maybe somebody out there listening can start right away that's going to be effective for them?
One is continual communication, not just doing it when there's a problem. And probably the best method that we've seen universally is email type blasts, like newsletters and stuff that have information in there and updates of rules and regulations.
And this can be fun, right? They can have some fun. They can build in some community events. They can build in yard sale information, maybe things that people need in the community. Is that right?
Yeah, and they can get one of the ones we helped the association up in Orlando did. We got the local merchants. This is really cool. We got the local merchants in the area to give coupons in the newsletter for extra savings for dinners, 2-for-1s and stuff like that. And it all just about asking and representing your community.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's excellent. And so, again, communication obviously being a huge component about this. What we're going to do is in the next segment, we're going to start getting into some of the nuts and bolts of how these associations run. We're going to talk about governing documents. If you want to participate, again, you can reach us online at thecondocoaches.com. Via phone, 813-331-5415, 813-331-5415, or help at thecondocoaches.com. That's our email address. I won't get it, but Dean might. Candace, who we'll meet in a future episode, she's one of our condo coaches. She'll obviously be one of the people that are very integrated into this project, and Chad, of course, who's with us here today, and we're going to get Chad talking a little bit about his field of expertise and how he works with these associations. So the condocoaches.com is our website. Thecondocoaches.com is our website. And again, 813-331-5415 or help at thecondocoaches.com. It's the Condo Coaches radio show. Again, thecondocoaches.com. Hey, thank you so much for staying with us. The Condo Coaches radio show, thecondocoaches.com. If you want to participate, 813-331-5415, 813-331-5415. You can email us, help at thecondocoaches.com. And we have two of our condo coaches with us here today. For those of you just listening for the first time, the Condo Coaches radio show, really, we want to serve as a resource to you, whether you're a board member, whether you're a resident, maybe you're a property management company, but you're having some trouble there with your condo or homeowners association. We want to be the condo coaches to come in and help you get that stuff smoothed out. And so that's what this radio show is going to be about each and every week. And again, you can find out more details about us and even schedule an appointment if you go to thecondocoaches.com. With us, our condo head coach, Dean Akers, and one of our condo coaches, Chad Sweeting, with us here today. Hey, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And so we were kind of laying down the groundwork of really the role of the board and communication really being the first and foremost problem that we see most often in these associations. And so how important is, obviously you've already said communication, but also transparency in the entire process?
Well, my experience is transparency is just job one. Everything that they do is transparent. Everything is public knowledge for them, but not to share it with the members or not to be open about it or tell them it's none of their business never accomplishes anything.
Well, and like you said, I mean, a lot of times that's at the root of these communications problems because they're not talking about the things that are happening in these meetings, the decisions that are being made. And so what are some of the challenges you see in terms of communication out there between the associations and the residents?
Well, one of the biggest things is it's true in business too, is you let your buttons get pushed. When you're in a role of an executive of a company or a head of a board of this nature, you can't let somebody's name calling get you upset.
Sure.
You can't believe, Jonathan, the board meetings you'll go to and somebody will say, you're a crook. And then it just goes to pieces. And the person's obviously not a crook. And
Right.
the person doesn't even imply that they're like a legal crook. But they say some smart remark like that, and then the whole communication deal falls apart.
So don't take it personal. Keep your personal emotions out of it.
Right. You have a responsibility as an executive or board member of your association. And by the way, some of these are major businesses. Some of them have budgets of $5 and $6 and $7 million bucks.
Wow.
So they're real businesses.
Sure.
And they're non-compensated real businesses. So they really should be appreciative of the people that are on the board.
Well, and that's the one thing I think that a lot of people forget is that these board members are not only their neighbors, but they're volunteers.
Totally.
Correct.
Yeah. And so, Chad, in some of the clients that you've worked with, some of these associations, when it comes to, do you see transparency being a problem, or as Dean said, is it usually come down to just a lack of communication?
Are we still talking about between the board members and the members of the association?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that transparency can be an issue. I think you touched on something really important there. And these board members who are volunteers, they were elected, by their peers. Sometimes they may feel that they are not being appreciated because they're not being compensated.
Sure.
Their sole purpose in being a board member is the improvement of the community, to keep the property values up, the curbside appeal, and so they may be more likely to take something like, hey, you're a crook, more personally when they're not being compensated. So to answer your question about transparency, it depends on the temperament of the board member. Most of the time, most of my clients are very even keeled, happy to take any questions. And again, if it's something you touched on earlier as well, the property management company, they also take a lot of the burden off of the board members. So they're a valuable resource as well.
Well, and we've seen varying degrees, right? We see varying degrees, and I'm speaking as a homeowner because you guys are the experts, that people volunteer and get on these boards for different reasons. Some people want to be the more laid back, kind of reasonable, kind of person in the room, and then you have other people who want to be very strict. They want the community to be top notch at all times. They want everybody to kind of fall in line. And so how do you find that balance, between the people who want kind of a utopia, out of their community, and then the people who see it in a more reasonable light, and obviously that dynamic? How do you best manage that?
Well, that's another reason for this show. So
Yeah.
if you see a board, or you're a homeowner and you see your board's that strict, call the Condo Coaches. We can come in and kind of give communication training. We can do some of the things you're talking about as far as teaching people how to communicate.
Sure.
And that's again a big premise for us, is to get in there and make this cohesion go well. And Chad's spot on about how the board members, the appreciation, they're not compensated, so they
Right.
feel like, why me? Why are you up in my face when I do this for free and for you? And so it's a huge thing.
Well, and like you said, I mean, the amount of money that some of these associations manage is equivalent to maybe even a medium-sized
Yeah.
business, much less a small business.
Right.
And some of these people have the experience to do that. Some of them don't. But also the amount of time and effort that it takes in managing this small or medium-sized business, essentially, that is your condominium or your homeowners association. And so for someone out there that maybe thinking about getting involved on a board, right? Maybe thinking about running for a board position. What would you tell them? What's the one thing they need to know before kind of jumping in the deep end and running for a board position?
Well, I think they need to have temperament and have this transparency. And then they need to call on one of their professionals, whether it's their property management firm, their local attorney, or their association attorney, or in our case, the Condo Coaches, to come in and give them some framework on what they need to do and what's expected of them. And any one of those entities can help them if they'll listen.
I would agree with that too. If I can add on something, absolutely, you need to surround yourself with competent, intelligent people that can help you out. The board members don't need to do it alone. You can hire people, property management companies, attorneys, accountants, all kinds of people who can help you through those tough times and give you advice. And it's important to take that advice when it's given.
Well, and on that note, I mean, speaking of advice and free advice, we can have the condo coaches come out to their community. We can tell you, hey, this is a pretty big community. There's a lot to manage here. Why don't you bring in a company to help you manage some of this, or maybe bring in an expert to help you manage some of this? And so for those of you listening, if you want them to come out and do an assessment of your community or your board of directors, you can go to thecondocoaches.com. That's thecondocoaches.com. You can also call us. That's also a very easy way to get a hold of us, 813-331-5415. A lot of people love that personal interaction, that we get away from, I think, too often with technology nowadays. And so some of them just want to have a voice on the other end of the phone. And so 813-331-5415, or you can email us. That's easy too. help@thecondocoaches.com, help@thecondocoaches.com. We talked about wanting to get into governing documents. This is that big stack of papers that you fill out when you buy your home or your condo that talks about everything that the board of directors and that association is responsible for. How important is it for a homeowner to be familiar with those documents or read them in depth?
Well, I think it's very important, but I think it's also very important before you purchase in there to read them. Because one of the things we find out about communications is we'll have an angry member of the community about something that was clearly in the document and they never read it.
Sure, and when you often hear, well, who's responsible for fixing the lamppost, and who's responsible for, making sure that the garbage people are coming when they're supposed to, or maybe we want to get a pool in our community, right? And so a lot of those things are typically addressed up front in these documents. Is that right?
Right. And the other thing is really looking at these budgets and looking at their reserves and their cash reserves. Those are big things if you're purchasing a unit.
Now, and typically when you've purchased a home, if you're buying brand new, you are getting into a situation where there's this kind of transition period between the builder who's still in the picture, and then you have the homeowner who already lives there, and there may be some mix of the builder being on the board and residents being on the board. Give us a little bit of an idea of how that works in terms of the governing documents and what that transition process might be like.
Well, you want to talk to your association attorney about that, but they have turnover periods that the builders are involved in. When they hit certain thresholds, they have to turn it over to the board, and then they have warranty periods after that. But you want to look specifically. Those are, by the way, are governed by the state of Florida statutes.
Okay.
So that's not a governing document deal. But you want to make sure that if it's a turnover, that you are actively involved in that turnover.
And so, again, to avoid some of these problems, right, that the condo coaches are going to come in and solve, but to maybe head off some of these problems. What's maybe the one section of their HOA or COA documents that they absolutely need to get familiar with? What would you say?
What would you say?
Well, I mean, the bylaws are great as far as what percentage of the voting membership needs to approve of a big change, how many board members, that kind of thing. And then there's always a section, it depends on your governing documents, but there's always a section that has your, no hanging clotheslines in the back, whether pets are allowed, what size pets. Those are more kind of focused on the day-to-day activities of the typical homeowner than, say, what you were talking about, the developer. Like a typical homeowner couldn't be concerned with that.
All right. Well, you're listening to the Condo Coaches. TheCondoCoaches.com is our website. Again, TheCondoCoaches.com. If you want to participate, you can catch us online, again, at our website, or you can call us, 813-331-5415, 813-331-5415, or help@TheCondoCoaches.com. We'll be back. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Condo Coaches Radio Show. That's right, the Condo Coaches Radio Show. It's a brand new program that we're going to be bringing you every week that's going to help you, whether you're a homeowner or whether you're sitting on a board of directors of your condo or homeowners association. We're here to help you. I mean, really, there's nothing like this out there because a lot of people jump in to their communities or condos, homeowners association, and you're kind of thrown in the deep end, and so problems come up. There's a lot to manage, as we've been talking in past segments. It's almost like running a small business or even a medium-sized business in some cases, and so we're here to coach you through the process. We're here to help you navigate those issues and help you run efficiently, effectively, and on budget. And so, speaking of being on budget, let's talk about that budget. Of course, there's lots that go into maintaining even the smallest community. When you're talking about landscaping, you're talking about public areas, whether it's a park or a pool or a community center. How is that budget determined? Where does that number come from?
I would say, Jonathan, that 90% of the budgets are based on historicals. And if it's not, it would be a startup community, but they're still historicals. So all the big items they'll put out for bid, like landscaping, pool maintenance, and all that. But budgets year on year, you'll look at the numbers. They'll be pretty consistent. If there's something outstanding or something crazy, it'll be adjusted. The big item on budgets that people kind of overlook are reserve parts of the budget.
Okay.
And you know what reserves are.
Yeah, well, tell us a little bit about that, because again, there's a lot of first-time homeowners out there. And actually, before you touch on that, I did miss our introductions here for those of you who may have just tuned in. I'm Johnny Torres. I'm your host for the Condo Coaches radio show. But our experts here are Dean Akers, our condo head coach, and one of our condo coaches, Chad Sweeting. And we're here again to be a resource to you. So if you do have an issue that we can help you with, you can call us at 813-331-5415. help@thecondocoaches.com is our email address. That's help@thecondocoaches.com, or our website, thecondocoaches.com. And so not too long ago, I was a first-time homeowner, and you're talking about reserves. So, I mean, being a first-time homeowner, I barely knew what an HOA or a COA did or what they were responsible for. When talking about a community's budget, what are the reserves?
Well, the reserves are monies that they set aside isolated for big maintenance, roofs, parking lot repairs, things that have a depreciable life that you just like you would in any business.
Things that need maintenance.
Not maintenance, something that's going to fall apart. So, when you buy a brand new house that has a 20-year warranty on a roof,
Right.
99.99% of the time you buy a brand new house, that roof is not going to have any issue for 20 years. So if you live in it 10 years and you don't save any money, it doesn't matter. You move out. The next person moves in, lives 8 years. They move out. The person that moves in third moves in, they're going to buy a roof.
Right.
And that roof's going to be $20,000, $30,000 to that house.
Wow.
And they live in it 2 years. So the people that prior had the benefit. So a lot of times boards don't put reserves in because they're living there now.
Sure.
And it's a tough deal to say, hey, look, we really do need to make reserves for this, because in South Florida, there's $10 million reserve assessments happening now that were not reserved. And you're seeing people getting hit with hundreds of thousands of dollars of an assessment they have to pay now, and they're retired.
Well, and now that you touched on South Florida, for those of you listening, we're actually being carried across the state. We're in the Tampa Bay market, we're in the Orlando market, in the South Florida market. And so we are experts, you guys are experts. I'm just the radio host, but you guys are experts in living in Florida. I mean, really, that's, in addition to managing and advising condo associations, homeowner associations, living in Florida itself is a unique animal in many instances. And so you were talking about those assessments. Would you recommend a new board, let's say that's in a brand new community, would you recommend that they go ahead and start setting aside reserves?
Absolutely. But the first thing they want to do is see if they have reserves.
Yeah.
And then I would say every 2 to 3 years, they should have a reserve study, which is a professional company. By the way, we'll have a condo coach come on that is in that industry to share some ideas about it. But the reserve study is critical, because that tells you what you have looming, and it's very real.
Absolutely. Well, and so, again, we're talking about money, in some instances, a lot of money. You said millions of dollars in the case of some of these condominiums and some of these communities that we're talking about. Chad, what happens when someone doesn't pay their association fees? We just recently went through a pretty nasty recession. We're still kind of slowly getting out of that. And so there's been a lot of instances where people were living in a community, and obviously they're trying to make ends meet. Somebody doesn't pay their association fees. What happens next?
Yeah, and I just want to touch on something you're talking about earlier with the reserves. And a lot of these boards that didn't put aside reserves in the past, it wasn't by way of their being irresponsible. A lot of times it was because back when we had the recession hit us, the first thing people stopped paying was their assessments. So these reserves would get depleted. These associations were living, paycheck to paycheck, so to speak, monthly assessment, and they could barely, pay the water bill. So now that we're seeing, the recovery of the economy somewhat, that it is a good time to build up those reserves. But to answer your question, the association has, or the board has very, very broad powers and very, powerful powers, for lack of a better term, to get these assessments back. So I do have a story about, we take for granted, because we work in this industry, we deal with this day to day. We take for granted that everyone knows what an assessment is, who levies the assessment, that kind of thing. But I had a unit owner who was not paying her assessments, and she was representing herself. You say pro se in the legal field. She's representing herself, and we went to mediation. And I was going to say, hey, you're trying to find, and believe it or not, the associations do not want to take title. They don't want to foreclose on these units. They just want their assessments being paid monthly.
Sure.
So this, we went to the table, the bargaining table, the mediation with this unit owner to see if we could come with some kind of mutually beneficial agreement so she could start paying her assessments. Excuse me. She came to, this is the first time I had spoken to her in person, and she came to the table saying that she didn't understand why these assessments were not paid. She goes, I told the bank, I gave the bank all the money, she thought the assessments were part of the mortgage. So that's why she wasn't paying. So that was, and she wasn't, she wasn't lying. That was honestly what she thought.
So it goes back to communication, which we
Totally.
talked a lot about during this show. And again, maybe it's a misunderstanding, and it's also something we haven't really touched on this show, but it is incredibly important for homeowners to attend their board meetings.
Oh, absolutely.
They're all different. Some of them are monthly, quarterly, maybe biweekly. And not that you have to go to every single meeting, but I think we would all be in agreement that they should be attending their board meetings when possible.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that would help her. That would have educated her onto, the importance of paying your assessments. So to go back to your original question, what would happen is you place a lien on the property, much like a bank would place a lien on the property for not paying your mortgage. And again, she had no idea that, the association could foreclose on her home, could take title to her home. So when they don't pay assessments, there are certain, it depends on your governing documents, but state law is 18% interest, up to $25 late fee per month when you don't pay the assessments. And as you can kind of imagine, that can build up very, very quickly.
Sure.
1-2 years of unpaid assessments can balloon up to something unmanageable for the unit owner. So at that time, if they're unable to, and again, these associations, they want to have a payment plan. They want these unit owners to just pay their monthly assessments. So oftentimes we can come up with a payment plan. We can figure out some way to not foreclose on the home. But ultimately,
they're neighbors, right? At the end of the day,
Exactly.
these are your neighbors.
Exactly.
Sure, they're sitting on this board. It's a volunteer board, but at the end of the day, nobody wants to kick somebody out of the neighborhood.
Right. But ultimately, that is the ultimate power they have, is to basically kick someone out of their home. They can take title of the home.
Can I make a point, though, that's this, again, the communications?
Yeah.
The boards have a responsibility, just like the mayor of a city does or whatever. If you live next door to the mayor, Jonathan, or the county commissioners, and you don't pay your property taxes, you can't walk over and to the county commissioner, it's your buddy, and say, look, could you just kind of stretch me out for a year? It ain't going to happen.
Right.
So it's similar.
But having those lines of communication open, for instance, with the example you gave, could have maybe avoided this to kind of get as far as it did.
Yes.
And they could have figured out something before it got down that legal path.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so when that burden, again, falls on the homeowner, we'll talk about this again in our last segment, but we're going to talk about what effect that has on the rest of the community, right? On the rest of the residents, because that's also important for people out there to know. Again, with us today, Condo head coach Dean Akers and Chad Sweeting, one of our Condo Coaches. The Condo Coaches radio show at thecondocoaches.com. Our number 813-331-5415. And you can reach us via email, help@thecondocoaches.com. We'll be back. Hey everyone, it's the Condo Coaches radio show. That's the Condo Coaches. You can find us online at thecondocoaches.com. That's thecondocoaches.com. And, I want to introduce to you again my guests here on the show. our condo head coach, Dean Akers, and Chad Sweeting, one of our condo coaches. If you want to participate in the program or you want to talk to one of our condo coaches, call us at 813-331-5415, 813-331-5415. You can email us too, help@thecondocoaches.com, and we can help you no matter what part of the state you're in. This is, we're exploding onto the scene. You're going to be hearing us. You're probably listening in Tampa Bay or in Orlando or in South Florida, and we've got people all over the state that are ready to help you navigate all the hoops and hurdles and good times and bad times of being a part of a board of directors and a condo or homeowners association. Dean, tell us a little bit more exactly about what it is the Condo Coaches wants to accomplish.
Well, we want to put together a network. We have put together a network of experts across the state of Florida. Some that will come on the show, but if you ask for our assessment to come in and give you advice and help at no charge, we have industry experts that'll come in and look at different facets of your association you need help with and give you advice.
Yeah, and that's not only like they're not just going to come and walk around your community. They'll come to a board meeting. They'll sit down with your board.
Absolutely.
They'll see how you operate your meetings. They'll see how you handle, the different issues that you're dealing with. So maybe they're financial, maybe they're organizational. We've talked a lot about communication today. So really it's all facets, right, of being on the board of a condo or homeowner association.
We want to make this industry or the boards and their constituencies more cohesive to make this just a great business to be in, which is condominium associations.
Yeah, because again, the majority are all volunteers.
Oh, totally.
And people come from all walks of life, some with and some without the experience that they need to serve on these boards. But we want to make it a great experience. It's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of pressure too. And of course it has its good times and its bad times, and we want to help you navigate that. And so again, we're the Condo Coaches. You're going to find us weekly here on this station, and you can reach us at thecondocoaches.com. via phone, 813-331-5415, or via email, help@thecondocoaches.com. Before we took that break, we were talking about assessments, we were talking about the budget, we were talking about what happens when a resident doesn't pay their homeowners association fees or condo fees. What effect does that have, Chad, on the community at large?
Yeah, when obviously a lot of communities felt this back in the depths of the recession, when people don't pay their assessments. That's the lifeblood of the association. The grass doesn't get cut, the pool doesn't get cleaned, all these numerous things we talked about that are in the budget don't get done, and ultimately it's bad for the entire association because the property values fall. So yeah, that would be what would happen if they don't pay. And again, I want to reiterate that something that the condo coach can do. The ultimate, go back to what I said before, the ultimate thing that you can do is to take the property away if they don't pay their assessments, and you can get a court order saying that. However, it doesn't always benefit the association to do that. Of course, there are legal fees involved. There's time involved. So there are other avenues that can be taken to ultimately recover those delinquent assessments. One of those being, as I said, mediation. Payment plans.
Well, and it's certainly something that we're going to talk about pretty frequently on this program, but you also got to tackle the fact that the bank might have an issue there, and the bank might be involved in terms of maybe they weren't paying their mortgage either, and what role that plays in terms of how the association can or cannot collect. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's something we haven't touched on yet, but the bank is a huge player in this game, because most often the bank will also have a lien. Well, they'll have a mortgage, obviously, and maybe a lien on the property if they're not paying their mortgage. Mm-hmm. So that is another thing to take into account for the association. Do you want to take title to a property and then have the bank come 2 months later, and then because the bank is going to have priority over the association's lien, and just take title to the property, and in essence you didn't really accomplish anything in that time period? Well,
and so I'm Joe Q, and Bobby S next door wasn't paying his association fees. Aside from, like you said, the pool not getting cleaned, the fence not being painted, that sort of thing, what other side effects does that have on me as a resident in this community?
Well, I can tell you a big one is when your neighbor doesn't pay, you're paying, because the budget still has to be met. So if the neighbor doesn't pay, or they bad debt 10% of the community's dollars, your assessment's going to be 10% more. It's just that simple. It's just math.
Right, because at the end of the day, they have to make the numbers add up. They're not for profit, so they
Right.
have zero-based budgeting, right?
Right.
And that money has to come from somewhere.
Absolutely, and that's the struggle that a lot of people don't really grasp, is that when your neighbor doesn't pay, you're going to pay for your neighbor. I've even told some associations, look, if you really want to be good people and love all your neighbors like you say you do, create a community chest and have every member put in an extra $50 a month. Then when somebody falls on hard times, you use it to pay. But don't do it out of having assessments not paid.
And so, we got about a little over a minute here left. But on that note, would it be advised maybe to set up reserves for that type of situation? And let's say right now where the economy is okay, it's not great, but there's nothing necessarily that they need the reserves for. Is that something that could be used, or that those reserves dollars can be used for?
Possibly, but the one thing I would caution on that, and building on what Dean said, if your neighbor is not paying, and you have reserves, and they're just, everyone knows there's that, something to fall back on, that would, I'm gonna say, my neighbor is not paying, we have reserves, my neighbors aren't going to care if I don't pay either then. So then it can have a domino effect where no one wants to pay. That's why a lot of associations, and rightly so, very strict. Even if 1, 2 unit owners are not paying their assessments, it's really important to get everyone on the same page, to be really strict with, everyone needs to make those monthly assessments.
Well, if you've been listening to the program, I think you've realized there's so much for us to talk about. There's so many facets to condominium and homeowner associations. If you want to learn more directly from one of our condo coaches, you can call us 813-331-5415, 813-331-5415. You can find us online. Everything you need to know about the condo coaches. Go there, look us up for our free assessment, thecondocoaches.com. That's thecondocoaches.com. And of course, our email address, help@thecondocoaches.com. Dean Akers, our head condo coach, and Chad Sweeting, he's been our condo coach for the day. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being on the show.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you next week.